Right, just before we crack on with this episode, just a quick word about our sponsor, KS Civils and Groundworks Limited, based in Leeds. They have over 296 years of combined experience in civil engineering and groundworks. Led by Director Carl Smith, their team is known for honesty, reliability and commitment to the highest safety and quality standards. They're proudly ISO accredited and fully CHAS Elite accredited. No matter the size of your project, KS Civils and Groundworks delivers professional, trustworthy service you can rely on. To learn more, visit kscivelsandgroundworks.co.uk. Now let's dive back into this episode. Hi, welcome back to the podcast. Today I'm joined by Stuart Wright. Now Stuart served with the RDG and now runs Cairngorms. See, I can't even speak again.
Operation Cairngorms.
Sorry about that. Thank you. Yeah, but we'll come on to that later. Welcome to the podcast. Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, appreciate it. Very much appreciate it.
Honestly, without people like yourself, I wouldn't be able to do it. It's just the same questions that I give everybody. So, where did you grow up? Just to get some background on you. Why did you join the military? What was it like? Why did you leave? And what have you done since? Which we're going to talk about later on in great depth. Hopefully.
Awesome. Yeah, no. So I'm a PADS brat. So my old man was in the 4th, 7th Dragoon Guards, and I got to travel around as a kid, Germany, Detmold, all these sort of places, back in the 80s and then 90s. Spent a little bit of time down in Bovington, home of the Royal Armoured Corps, which subsequently was where I then went and did all my training at. Reason why I joined the military, I can honestly say I was one of the lucky guys. I didn't have a bad upbringing. I didn't get lost and needed to find myself. I remember about 7 years old being stood on a viewing platform in Sol Tower, and my old man and his trooper tanks and their chieftains came charging through the woods. And I remember feeling the ground shake, and I remember smelling the diesel from a mile away. And they pulled right up to the viewing platform. No health and safety back in the day. We all, as families, climbed on the front of the chieftains, got taken to the troop hide. I think I got to let rip on a Jimpy at 7-year-old. And, it was one of those ones that I remember specifically thinking, you know what, I want to do that when I was older. And then, all the way through education, if anyone ever asked me what I was going to do, I was never going to be a fighter pilot. I was going to be a tank commander. Yeah, lo and behold.
I mean, how did you think? If you think back now, like as an adult, the schooling in Germany. Because I had kids when we lived in Germany.
Yeah.
I don't think it was very good. I suppose they were limited what they could do because with people moving around a lot, stuff like that. But when we moved back to the UK, they seemed to get a lot better education in the schools there than they did in Germany. And plus moving about a lot as well. Do the RDG, like artillery army, they move around as a unit?
Yeah, we did. Yeah.
Like individuals.
Yeah, we did.
So you tend to stay.
Yeah, we went
to
somewhere like it was Fallenbossel, Detmold. I can't remember the other ones. So we did a few moves before we then relocated back to the UK.
And as a child, how did you find coming back to the UK? Because you probably wouldn't have known it that way.
Yeah, maybe not. I mean, we lived on a PADS estate, so I remember as a youngster living on a PADS estate, and then when we came back to the UK, moving to Bovington was the same difference. The only thing was in Bovington there was civilians within the PADS estate, so the schooling wasn't all military kids. But yeah, I never had any problems. Just getting on with it.
So it was always going to be the RDG that you joined then?
They tried putting me in the KRH, I think it was. Some crap out. I'm sorry. Yeah, the KRH. But I remember going to the careers office and saying, no, my old man was RDGs. And they sort of shuffled things around. And that's where I ended up going into. And it felt right. I mean, I'd sort of been brought up around the Yorkshire family. I was born in Catterick. So it only felt fitting that I sort of go back to the Yorkshire roots as such, even though I was living down in Dorset, down on the south coast.
I mean, I'll just go back to one second about kids and that. I remember coming back. We moved back to the UK in 2006, and kids went into the local schools, and we moved up to the northeast.
Mm-hmm.
And you'll probably appreciate this because PADS brats don't have an accent.
Yeah, I still get it.
They just don't have an accent. Yeah. And the amount of stick they got because everyone thought they were dead posh.
Yeah.
And they were just like, "What are you on about?" Because no accent at all. It's a bit. And like I say, my son is probably still the same now. All these years later, like 13 years later, he's got like no northeastern accent.
Yeah.
It's bizarre, right? So I mean, turning up for training.
Mm-hmm.
Did you know what to expect, or was it all a bit of a shock?
No, not so much. My old man certainly didn't beast me and get me ironing and all that sort of stuff. And yeah, going to, where did I go? I went Warminster. No, I really liked Warminster. Like, just, it was, yeah, we're all young men and women. And the instructors were good. I remember the instructors, even now, they weren't of the breed of the bullying. I remember one of the guys was an RMP. He was his sergeant, actually, that's what his name was. And he was a real good role model, to be honest. When you cocked up, you chased the 4-tonner, or whatever it was, the DAF, and you did your PT, but no, they were really good. Yeah, they were really good. And I've still got mates that I went through training with that I'm in contact with now. Like, there's a few of us went RDGs, some went KRH, a couple of boys went QRH. My mate Daz, who I keep in touch with quite a lot. Yeah, 25 years ago. And then
it flies by.
It does. Yeah.
Scary.
And then
we went on my 40th reunion this year. I'm like,
wow,
how did that happen?
40, yeah, that's it. Yeah. No comment.
Hey, it'll happen to you.
Yeah. But no, it's good.
We all get old.
And then so I did Warminster, and then I got pushed down to Bovington, and it was cracking because my mother and father lived down in a place called Bear Regis at the time, which is like 5 miles away. So sometimes I'd stay at home and I'd jogging in the morning, and then other times, it was good. I could get, and I think actually it really helped with my army career because I thoroughly believe in the saying the kettle is always on. And when I was in basic training, the lads I went through, we had that. So it was the case of, if we had a crap day, then we go around to my place, and my mother would put the kettle on, or we'd go back for some proper food and not sort of army food. It was good. It was like being part of the family already.
It just seems odd, like going to phase 2 and then nipping home on a night.
Yeah, it was. I mean, it didn't spoil it, I suppose, because there's elements where all the lads would go to Bournemouth and Waybeaver and stuff like that. I mean, I did as well, but I had to be a bit more careful because my mum and dad lived down the road.
You couldn't get away.
We took a 432 down the road once, back when we were doing the H license, and everyone didn't believe I lived there. And the instructor said, "Well, go on then, show us where you live." So we drove the 432 down to my house, down Green Close, parked it outside the house, beeped the horn, and my mum came out.
I bet the fucking neighbours loved that one, didn't they?
Yeah, so they kind of understood what I was all about then. And then so we did the H license 432, and then Charlie 2 driver course, which, if I'm honest, the reality of being a Charlie 2 driver, it wasn't really for me to be. I love booting it in the tank, and it is amazing how fast you can go across country, but I wasn't mechanically minded at all. And I struggled with that. Yeah, the trade tests, I struggled with some of the trade tests, even though some people that were watching it would be bloody easy. But I wasn't mechanically minded. So
is the driver the first job that everybody has to do?
Yeah, so you do your driver's course, and then some people, if they're lucky, they get pushed straight to their gunners. So, but I didn't. I went.
And were you lucky enough to go straight on your
No,
gunners?
not at all. I did my driver's course and then flew out to Germany and then joined the regiment in Germany. And I think it was 3 weeks after that we flew out to Oman to save Syria. So
I missed out on that one. I can't remember where it was, but I wasn't on that one. But I've been to Oman. It's a lovely, desolate desert. It's very hot. It's weird how even up through the 90s, the amount of times we were going on exercise to places like Jordan and Oman, it's as if they planted something coming. I don't know. I did a lot of desert training.
Yeah.
Weirdly.
It's just that open.
So what was it like turning up with the regiment then? Because I mean, it's probably the first time really that you've fully been away from home.
Yeah,
when you've gone to training, you come back to phase 2 where you're quite close to home. So you're like, you're on your own completely this time.
Yeah, no, it was interesting. I mean, again, I won't name any names for this one, but when I went out to Germany, it was just before CDT came in, the compulsory drugs testing, and I'm not gonna lie, like Germany was an eye opener. Being a young lad and walking down the corridor and corridor parties that were far wilder than Dorset down on the south coast of England, and it was one of those. It was a true eye opener. I mean, I didn't do anything because I wasn't. It's the only way you could get kicked out of the army, and I was finally getting a paycheck, and I didn't have to pay for food, so I wasn't going to do anything daft. The reality was that there was a lot of people that did do stuff that was daft.
Yeah, I think it was a lot more rife in the military than we all give it credit for.
Yeah, I'd say so. Like early 2000s, especially in. I mean, I don't know anywhere else, but Germany was. But equally, it was one of those. Like the guys nowadays, they're not in 4-man rooms. you're not living away from home. So actually going out there, I was in a room, and we were all good lads, and we used to go out on the pot, and it built that camaraderie. It was it was really good. Yeah, really good.
I mean, Germany is a different army to the UK,
Hmm.
and you do end up a lot closer because you're living with each other 24/7.
Yeah.
I mean, how would the regiment react to the Sprogs coming in? Because that's, for me, it was just a bigger shock as getting to meet parent unit
Mm.
as it was joining the army. I mean, when I joined the army, not really expecting what it was about, to be honest. But when I turned up a unit, it's just like, this is a big bad world. And everyone seems so much older and grizzled and angry. But this was the late 80s,
Yeah.
so I think everyone just was angrier.
Yeah, I mean, so for me, there was definitely personalities that I clocked straight away. And I mean, I was an innocent lad, like I said, I didn't have that sort of rough upbringing or nothing. It was, it was an eye opener. But there was definitely personalities that, were from a different era. And I'm not going to say they believed in the bullying or the character building, we'll call it. But there was definitely people that I wasn't comfy around, and I had a couple of people that enjoyed the fact that I was maybe a little bit more innocent than I should have let myself be, sort of thing. Equally, there were some really good guys there, and actually, my first tank crew, there was a lad on that, Tommy, who even now I respect the guy. He was a good role model for a young lad. Yeah, he coached me, mentored me. So when I first jumped in that Charlie 2 in Oman, and I couldn't work out why the bloody thing wouldn't start, because I hadn't touched one for 4 months or something, he just dropped down through the loaders and got it sorted. There was no boot in the back of the head like I had in other tanks, but it was part of the tank crew way, I suppose.
Yeah, I mean, saying I joined mid 80s, and it ended up on the guns, and it was a different army to as it was later on. I mean, I was lucky. I had some good mentors.
Yeah.
And there wasn't any of that. It wasn't bullying, but you got to. I'm thinking, right, you've got to imagine this is an old Abbott,
Yeah.
a 105mm self-propelled gun. All right, it had Klansman radio in it, but the handset for the intercom and stuff like that was the old Larkspur gear. So it's like predates me by many years, and it's like massive Baker-like thing.
Right.
And if you're sat in the lane seat and you do something wrong and your commander sat behind you, you felt that fucker on you.
Yeah.
You really did.
Yeah.
But it wasn't malicious. They weren't doing it. If you fucked up, you got a clip like that.
Yeah.
And it was giggling. It was a laugh.
Yeah.
It wasn't. I'd say it wasn't malicious. But I spoke to many other people where bullying was rife. Especially within infantry regiments, it seems to be a bit more prevalent there than it has in other arms. Which you can kind of
I don't think. Yeah, I don't know. To be honest, I mean, like I say, the RDGs was a really good regiment, and what I genuinely loved about it was there's only a couple of people that knew my old man was in the 4th 7th, so I went to the RDGs, and it wasn't like, oh, your old man was here. No one really knew, which I think was a good thing for me, but also that there was a few guys that they did believe in bullying. It was a bit of a power trip for them, and you could see it, on the tank parks, but there were more guys that weren't like that. And
I suppose by that time, around the 2000s, it was starting to wean out a little bit. People were different. It was the younger
changed,
guys were coming into the senior NCOs and that. So
and the world changed. We flew out to Oman as the Twin Towers got hit. So I think when that all kicked off, and then you had all the SBS boys and the the mountain warfare lads from the Royal Marines tipped up at South Camp. I remember that, and then the world changed, and I think as it changed, not the training maybe didn't necessarily change, but the perspective of you could be going on tour and it's a proper tour. It's not a Hollywood tour, or a holiday tour. It's so I think that changed people's mentality a little bit as well.
It's funny because everyone I've spoke to on a podcast always remembers where they were when that happened. It's a point of reference, especially the people who were serving, and a lot of people do say it felt different. It changed overnight. Personally, I don't think I felt that.
Right.
I was at the Royal School of Artillery when it happened, so everyone just carried on. You knew something had changed, but not it wasn't tangible. I suppose that's because I was at the school. But when I got back to the regiment a year later, after I'd done my 2 years down there, that changed.
Right.
There seemed to be more emphasis on getting things ready.
Yeah.
We hadn't been warned off for anything. Artillery wasn't going out to Afghan or anything like that. And then all of a sudden the rumours started coming around about Bob Tellick 2003, and that's where I found everything started to change.
Right.
It'd been in the artillery anyway, not Marines or anything like that.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. Especially going. I mean, we were funnily. We had our regiment had some nicknames because we didn't go on up Tellick till sort of 2005, but we did a lot of build up for it. And yeah, there was definitely change in mentality. We still had a good laugh, but yeah, we were especially coming up to the tour time. It was good. We've become a lot more professional.
So I mean, what was your first? You've done Oman. Yeah. What happened for you after Oman? Where did you end up with the tanks there then?
Oh man, we did Canada a couple of times. So we'd go out to Bathurst.
So that was a good one.
Yeah, brilliant. Brilliant. Yeah, Bathurst. We did main like the sort of the main party, and then I think we did a safety staff as well, which was like a 6-month tour essentially of Bathurst, which was brilliant. Getting paid loads of money. The exchange rate was brilliant, and it's good. But no, I mean,
and the Simbin.
Yeah, the Simbin. Yeah, we don't mention that.
It's closed now, apparently.
Well, Bathurst is closed. Yeah.
Oh yeah, Bathurst is closed, isn't it? Yeah. I had one of the lads on last year. He lives over in
Redmond.
Yeah, Red Brick.
Right. Okay.
Which is about halfway between where Bathurst and
Yeah.
He went out there, met a Canadian lass, married her.
Yeah, we had a few of our guys that did that as well, and then obviously there was Saab. So some of the guys that actually left went out and worked for Saab with the old Tez kit, which made some money with that.
We had a few guys leave the last regiment to go and work for Thales.
Yeah, okay.
Literally walked out on the Friday and walked back in on the Monday in civvies, earning 3 times as much. And you're just like, what the hell?
Exactly.
Yeah, but that's something.
But no,
so I mean, you build up to Iraq. Did you say that have the tanks out there as well?
Yes.
Or did you go out?
So I deployed out in 2005. That was Telic 5. So that was just after PWRR and QRL were out there with Simic House. So I was up in Alamara. And yeah, I think we had a troop of tanks up there. A squadron, we had a squadron up there. And A squadron were in tanks, and I was part of recce troop. So we were cutting about in cut down Land Rovers and then snatches.
Yeah, not good.
Yeah, well, you know what? It was a weird one. It was fun. You're so light. Stab proof vest. Yeah. Stab proof vest with a little armor plate on, and then we had Land Rover 110s just with a roll cage cutting around, and then when we were using snatches every now and then as well. But no one really liked the snatches.
I mean, how was it up there? Because I never went that far north. I've only ever done, we did up to and then went back in 2006 and I just did Basra.
Yeah. No,
so
well,
I never went there, but I bet it was quite naughty up there.
Yeah, well, it was the tour before us. I mean, we were fairly lucky, to be honest. I mean, my first day actually in Alamara, I do remember it, and 155 shell went over the camp, and I remember the lass who was running the PRI shop, where you get all your dodgy DVDs, sort of taking cover and saying, "Get down," and it was like, yeah, cool, that's interesting. As a young lad. But no, it was the QRL, to be fair, and the PWRI. They took the brunt of it. So by the time we got there wasn't much. Yeah, there wasn't much going on. We used to get the mortared and all that sort of stuff like normal, and a couple of shooting scoots, and so some of the call signs. Yeah, it wasn't that bad. It was more the fact that it was so isolated. We would, as recce troop, we'd go out and do stuff, and we'll go up on the Iran-Iraq border and go those sort of places where you are really isolated.
That must have been quite scary, being that far out on the Iranian border.
It's a weird, I mean, in hindsight, when you think about it logistically, it was a bit daft, because there was times when you'd be out on the Iran-Iraq border, and there would have been 3 or 4 Land Rovers, and that's it. And then you're relying on the old Klansmen back then, to keep comms and all this, and sat phones and stuff. And it was a bit remote. And some of the border forts were out in the middle of the marshes, and you don't go off of the track because of the anti-personnel mines that were all legacy mines from the Iran-Iraq war. It was a bit dodgy, but we never.
Yeah, you'd have to be a bit careful.
Yeah.
I mean, so coming back from that, did you go through or did they not have the decompression then? Because I never did any
No.
decompression anywhere I went through Cyprus.
Well, no. So we flew through Cyprus. I don't really remember the Cyprus bit, to be honest. I don't think we did, because we got back to Germany and then we basically got gated. We got told we weren't allowed to leave camp, and they opened up all the squadron
Which
bars.
is shit, isn't it?
Yeah, oh yeah, completely opened up
It's
all the
shit.
squadron bars. Yeah, you had your days off, and then it was back to tank park routine. And then as soon as they did ungate us, everyone went home apart from me and four of my good mates. We ended up going straight down to Cologne and flying out to Magaluf. Yeah, it's one of them.
Fucking why not as
Yeah,
well?
well, that's it.
All that guilt in your pocket.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
Might as well, yeah.
that's it. But no, Telic 5 was it was a good one in ways, and I mean it was my first tour with the Recce Troop, and I stayed with the Recce Troop for pretty much a decade, almost with the same guys. So we had a couple of TA lads in, a lad Gary, who he was TA, but one of the best lads I served with, and I think he's still in the TA now, still trying to get out and do stuff, or he was anyway. I know he did a couple more tours of Afghan than everyone else. But yeah, no, Iraq definitely sort of brought us all together, to be honest, and set the pathway for me and some of my peers, you know.
I mean, you mentioned there about the TA. I've not worked with any member of the TA who I wouldn't work with again.
Oh, I had one.
You know,
We had one lad.
I've not had any.
Yeah.
You know, we used to call them all stabs and
Right.
take the piss and stuff
Yeah.
like that. Where everyone that's ever been on tour with us can't fault them.
Yeah. We had a lad called Stretch, who was a photographer, and you can imagine what he was like on the top cover of a Land Rover. You know, we'd do stuff, and then he'd just be wanting to take pictures. And back in them days, it's not with like a smartphone; it's with a proper Sony digital clicker thing. You know, he'd be like, "Stretch, your bloody chin strap done up," you know. Yeah, funny
Get
time.
your fucking head down. So what was for you after that tour of Iraq?
Back to doing Canada's and pre-deployment rotations, and then we were back out there in 2007. But this time we went as a regiment to Basra, so we were down in Basra for that.
Very different tour then.
Yeah, completely different tour. Yeah, it was. I'd not been to Basra before, so I mean, when we went on Telic 5, we were in Kuwait, so we fitted all the chopper armor to the Charlies there, and then Telic. What was that? Telic 11? No, Telic 12. No, Telic 11. Sorry, Telic 11. 2007 it was. There was armor and then warriors. So we mounted the warriors and did all that. But yeah, Basra was mental. Like the sheer size of the place, and it was all IDF. It was just we had big Fanix guns, and you lived in a coffin. You had your steel plate and then your breeze blocks and your sandbags. And there's a few times, I mean, I mind the one night where we had, I think it was 26 rounds came in, and the Fanix guns were going mental. And there's a video clip floats around Facebook, and I remember that night.
Yeah, I think I've seen that one about.
I remember that night.
I mean, about using the tanks, using Charlies in Basra doesn't seem practical, to be honest.
Yeah, so I mean, I wasn't part of the tanks. I was on Warrior, but I know like there was couple of squadrons that were, and they were using them more for clearing roads, so they would use them to drive down the roads, because again the battlefield sort of changed. So in Telic 5 it was very much like I say there was shooting scooters and IDF and stuff, and Telic 2007 was when the IED threat started coming in, so we had like the EFPs, so the enhanced projectiles, the old drawing pin sort of IEDs, they started coming in. And then there was the daisy chains, and that's when I think the Iraqis, obviously getting backed by the Iranians, started switching on a bit to how they could do stuff. And a couple of the call signs got hit by IEDs, but 70-ton battle tank, just keep driving it through. And one of the lads, Chris Richards, he got a military cross. He got a military cross for one of the patrols. He led a column of Americans down an IED lane essentially, and just drove it in his Charlie 2 and took the brunt of the IEDs,
Fuck that. Fucking hell. I mean, fair enough. He deserves a medal for that, because I mean, I've seen what a 155 shell can do to a tank.
Yeah.
And it's not pretty.
No, not at all. No. Well, it was the EFPs. I remember one of the wagons got hit by an EFP, and it went in through the right hand side of the Warrior, and it went through all the armor and the engine. The big hole like that, just melted everything.
It's quite scary.
It was. It was that reality that it's a bit different to where we were before.
You see, I was going to say, I mean, how can I put this? Understanding or the realization that this is fucking real. You know, for me on Optelic, really, it was the day we watched the UN drive away from the border. So we were all sat waiting. We've been there ages. We've been there weeks and weeks, and then all of a sudden we seen the UN driving away. You know what it's like. You're out in the desert. You don't get any news. You don't know what's going on in the world. You've only got what you can listen to on the BBC radio or whatever. And maybe that's not biased, but you don't understand, you don't listen, you don't understand what's happening around. All of a sudden you see the UN moving, leaving the border, and you thought, shit. And literally that night we went in. So that was like a realisation. And what was it like with you? Like, so your first tour really would have been going out in like 2005.
Yeah.
When was the realisation for you that you weren't in Kansas anymore?
Well, I'd say day one. Literally, when we got into Alamara and I was walking over to the PRI to get some, and that 155 shell. I remember that 155 shell, the black slug going across the sky quite slowly, and just thinking, oh yeah, here we go then. And then the alarm went off, and then we were coming back from the Iran-Iraq border, and it actually turned out, I think, just to be a farmer, but he decided he thought we were like, I don't know, not nice people. So he let off an AK right down the main road and just went over the top of the Land Rovers. When there was a bit of a...
That could have been.
Yeah.
Could have been a bit interesting.
Yeah, well, it was because we were obviously in the 110s, so there's nothing. It was,
I bet you were glad you were in Warriors the second time then.
Well, to be honest, we didn't really have much of a job to do because it was not until they started really wanting to go into Basra again. It was mainly just kind of maintenance and then just waiting. And then when we did get an op, we'd get on and get in it. And some of the guys, I mean, the Sabre squadrons, they had a bit more to do. But Basra was just massive, and it was more the IDF, the indirect fire threat, that was just, I mean, I was on guard commander because obviously, Basra, there's loads and loads of different camps, and each camp has a guard room, and you basically had all these buses that could take you from one place to another. And I was on guard commander, just doing a handover changeover when a 3-round mortar engagement came in, just as one of the buses came up outside the and I mean, we were really lucky because it hit on the far side, put one of the young lads, Baker, he got pretty injured, and a few Gurkhas as well. And that was kind of the reality of IDF. You had no real protection against it. And then we had to sort of get them guys back in, patch them up, sort it out, but you couldn't do anything about it. It was more frustrating. I remember the CO coming over, and I was just like, you need to go out and punch something, you need to go do something. But you couldn't, it's just, you just had to sit and bloody take it.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, looking back at that, you can almost compare it to, say, Northern Ireland. Stuff people have been out there and stuff like that, and you're sat in your, back in Besbrook Mill or wherever, and you just want to go fucking batter someone, but you can't.
Yeah, no, that's it.
There's restraint for it. I understand that feeling quite a lot.
Yeah, and that tour was with the Mercians as well, and they had some good lads. They had some good lads amongst them. Yeah, but it was a bit weird because it was like a Mercian RDG mix. Yeah, interesting.
So what was for you after that then? What was the next adventure, let's say?
I went and did my Recce Car Commanders. So I stayed in Recce Troop from about 2002 all the way up to 2011. So after the second time in Iraq, I went and did my Recce Car Commanders, which was good. I enjoyed that. I went with some of the lads, some of my mates. Got stuck into that, got promoted out of it, and then came back, probably did another Canada, because we were over Canada quite a lot. It's one of those sort of routines. Can't think what else. It was a long time ago.
Well, there's not many places you can actually travel or practice and exercise. I mean, like when you said a word earlier about, and it brought back memories for me, which is Salthouse.
Salthouse, yeah.
Salthouse's been closed a long time, but I've been on exercise there so many times, and there was no topsoil.
Yeah.
So it was horrible when it rained.
Yeah,
it's just fucking mud. It was horrible.
In fact, 2007, so we got back from 2007, and then 2008, we moved as a regiment back to the UK. That was the key milestone there. And that's, to be honest, when I think everything started going downhill a little bit. Because it was nice. We moved back to Catterick, and it was nice for people that lived in Leeds, York, Hull, Newcastle, all these sort of places. But it changed the lifestyle of the military. And everyone was in Z-type accommodation, which no one would say they wouldn't want it now because it was brilliant having your own room and your own shower and all this sort of stuff. But you lost that collective sort of bonding. There was no people were just going home. The camps were dead on the weekend. New lads would come in, and there was no initiations. There was nothing. There was no block parties. It was that was a big turning point. And then I think Sodexo took over, or Sodexo were doing pay as you dine, which meant I was a sergeant back then, and the amount of hungry soldiers you'd have and people that were just eating crap McDonald's because it was down in Catterick. It was a.
I mean, right there, coming back from Germany, like we said earlier, Germany, UK, very, very different army, very, very, very different. And I come back in 2006 to a UK regiment and started seeing a big difference, especially when there's dying and all that. But it was just, you're right, weekends.
Yeah.
They didn't even open the bar on camp because there was no one there to use it.
And there was nowhere to put it either. It was like, that's what I genuinely loved about Germany was the fact that you had squadron bars and you had troop bars. And Recce Troop had a secret bar, and it was, you're only allowed in if you got an invite. It was brilliant, brilliant times. And it created that camaraderie, which then when you took on tour was very much needed. It was needed. And it wasn't for the drinking culture, nothing like that. It was just for the experience of actually being able to talk. And I think that's also what stems onto what I do now outside the military. When that sort of stuff started happening and people going home, we lost communication. And people then, you're only seeing your troop sergeants either get ticked off in the morning, do some fizz, do a job. There was no communication, and the full screws, your troop corporals were trying to do a good job, and they were really good lads, and they still are, but you can only do so much when you've only got people for 6 hours in a day, and it's their right to go home, or it's their right to finish at 5 o'clock.
I mean, I found a strange thing was the whole. I mean, it was obviously years prior to that, but when the whole Agai system come
Oh
in,
yeah.
I couldn't get my head around it. Even for all the years I was still in, I couldn't get me. And I never Agai'd anyway.
Yeah.
They still got the option of what they want. I was called a robust NCO, put it that way. But it just the army changed, and for me, it started going downhill. But I was in the pension trap, so I had to stay, to get my pension for my 22.
Yeah.
But I've seen so many lads disheartened and just wanted to get out, and I've seen lads leave at 17 years, 18 years. And you think, just put up for it a bit more, and they couldn't because it had changed that much.
Yeah, I agree, and I got out at my 12-year point, and a lot of my peer group now, like almost every full screw that was in Recce Troop with me got their RSM. They did. Some of the lads did absolutely fantastic, and the ones that didn't get RSM got badge W and did absolutely fantastic. But majority of them, I went back to I randomly tipped up at Warminster back in, would that have been 22 maybe, 2021? And a lot of people, it's the pension trap, they got caught in that, and majority of them were like, you did good to get out at 12 years because that's just as the army changed. I'm not saying it got softer, but I think we, it's a hard one to put because I very much saw myself as more of a mentor. I loved it, and I loved sort of instructing, and I loved helping guys either improve, whether it was fitness, whether it was skill set, whether it was mindset. I enjoyed that, but you had to sometimes grip people by the collar and say, "Look, come on, we're going." Whereas now, it was like, "Nah, not at all." You raise your voice, and you're getting bloody a yellow card or some crap.
I always thought that was a myth until I found out it wasn't.
It was.
But I mean,
phase one.
Different society, different people than when we joined. You were a different type of person than when I joined. Now, the army or the military has to evolve.
I think.
But it's just us dinosaurs do one.
But I think there's a way of doing it. I think, and again, like when we get onto what I do now, it kind of all makes sense. Equally, if there's a threat out there, then I'm not saying you need to grip someone to make them stronger, but you know what? There might be a time when something's going to go horribly wrong, and by gripping them at that point, it's not going to work. And that's why some of the guys that were there when I first joined, I didn't get on with, and I say, that not saying they're bullies, but they believed in that old school mentality, which I didn't believe in, and I still don't believe in. But there were times when, you know what, they got a grip here, and it was the right time. And I'd look back on it now and go, yeah, I deserved it, or well, yeah, that made me stronger. You know, I didn't need a hug at that point. I needed someone to give me a kick up the arse and say, just keep going, and then give me a hug
I get
afterwards.
that. Yeah, I always ended up bollocking with a joke, so they never felt too bad. Put it that way. I still do that nowadays.
That's an artillery thing,
Not
that
that
one, yeah.
people. Yeah, artillery concert party. So I call it. So you've decided to leave then. I mean, obviously you sounded a bit, disenfranchised. Let's say.
Yeah, well, I did
Go
Herrick.
back to the
I
UK.
went to Afghan in 2010.
Right.
So I did do Herrick as part of Recce Troop, but we got put as like a I don't know what it was called. We basically looked after Sir General Nick Carter, and we would leapfrog to wherever he was going. So we had ridgebacks, and we spent a lot of time out in a place called Panjway out in the Arghandab Valley, which was nowhere near any other British troops. And yeah, I mean, that tour was an interesting one for D Squadron. So they were on Vikings, and yeah, we lost some boys out on that tour, and that was a reality check, to be honest. And yeah, it was big eye opener, especially for us as Recce Troop, where we didn't get our teeth in as much as we didn't get our teeth in such, you know, and we were listening to everyone else getting their teeth in, and it was a bit, we had some mates that were former Recce Troop that were in the other squadrons, and yeah, it was an interesting place, completely different to Iraq, and the IED threat, you know, that was just a subconscious stress all the time. And when you went out and about, even if, you know, like I think we were kind of lucky really, because we had the Pakistan floods not long before we deployed out. So actually, by the time we hit Panjway, there was almost zero fighting age males anywhere. I mean, we had a couple of rounds come in and we had a few bits going off, but the IED threat was very much still there, and the Canadians were getting hit a lot. But yeah, it was sort of D Squadron RDGs that were getting the brunt of it, and that's unfortunately where I lost one of my good mates, Marty Stenton, who got awarded the Military Cross for what he did. But yeah, that was a hard one, because he was Recce Troop for through and through pretty much, and then went and did his Charlie 2s, didn't come back to our troop, and went to D Squadron. And me and my mate Jacko and all the lads, Big Nath and whatnot, had seen him just before, and then it was a week or so later, his Zap number come up on the sort of the computer, and I had to break it to the boys, and that was probably the hardest thing I did on tour, to be honest, because Matty was a good guy and he was one of us.
Yeah, it's not good,
No.
especially when you've got to spread the word to people.
Yeah.
That must be quite hard, actually. I've never had to do that.
Yeah, it was horrible. Yeah, it was horrible, because I mean my Zap was Whiskey Romeo 7047, and Matty's was Mike Sierra, and I remember going in the morning and sort of doing the check like you did every morning, just to the tick check, make sure no one was like, and it come up with Mike Sierra 7047 KIA, and it was like, shit, there's and then but again, what I do now, that story there is so interesting in what I'll tell you shortly. But what I did learn was, so when we got back from Afghan, the regiment changed. It was the first time that the regiment had been essentially war fighting, and then there was guys that really needed support. It wasn't the regiment's fault, but we weren't ready for it. There was guys that got kicked out, and again, they got caught on CDTs and stuff, but actually they weren't doing it for leisure. They were doing it for sleep. I remember when we got back, I took a bunch of guys actually to Neustift snowboarding, and one of the lads there was having night terrors, and we got back to the UK, and I was trying to get him sorted by the MO, and then I went on a course, and when I come back, he was gone. And that was a bit of a stickler for me, because I feel like there was a bit of a letdown of the system on a massive scale.
I think you're right what you said there, though. They weren't ready for it, or it was the mindset was wrong.
Yeah.
In my day, gotta sound old. It really was a case of fucking, if you just thought people were strange. No one talked about it. No one got involved. Yeah. Looking back now, even in the 90s, gotta sound old saying that. Even in the 90s, in the late 80s, we knew that there was guys in the regiment who we thought were just a bit
right.
mental. who were a bit fucking mad, who were a bit fucking weird. And they weren't, they were suffering.
All right, yeah.
But they didn't know they were. They didn't know they could talk to. We didn't know we could talk to people. This, that, and the other. And it was just swept under the carpet and ignored.
Yeah, that's it. And it was. But I mean, especially for us doing sort of Iraq and then Afghan and some of the stuff that some of the guys dealt with out there. Yeah, I mean, I keep in touch with a lot of the regiment now, and I massively promote sort of having the courage to communicate and trying to get people to talk, because even now there's guys that are carrying baggage, and they're out the military. Some of my closest mates, they left the military before they got diagnosed with PTSD. And that's horrendous. They go see their GP, and the GP tries giving them drugs, and then they tell them to ring the Samaritans or, something like that. And then you end up speaking to an 18-year-old girl, and she's asking you, oh, what do you dream about then? Or is there something that triggers it? And that they don't understand it. I come involved. This is where I sit in the support network now. And I believe it's quite critical, to be honest.
So how did you find leaving the military, the transition from...
Yeah, I loved it. It was brilliant. So after Afghan, I actually met my wife, Pip, when we were in Neustift. So she was serving, so she was one of the SO2s out there. So I actually met her while I was out snowboarding, and then kind of took the courtship back to the UK. Some of the old and bold are a bit disgruntled, we'll call it, because I was a sergeant, she was a major. But you know what? It's like you don't.
How did you know what?
Oh yeah.
Because I know of Pip, obviously.
Yeah. Well, I didn't know of Pip.
I couldn't get my head around that the other day, because in my day that was no.
Yeah.
So how was that received by people?
Well, a lot of people, like my peer group, no one really cared, and there's only certain seniors that did care. But the fact was, we weren't in the same regiment. Pip had she couldn't affect my pay grade. She couldn't, sign my chit, nothing like that. And she was actually down in York with 2 Med Brigade, and I was up in Catterick. So yeah, there wasn't much in the way. But when we especially when we got married, there was plenty of keyboard warriors that like to put a comment or two on, and it was all right. I was like, like, to be honest, nowadays, if I'd have known all about the algorithm, I might have tried milking it and made some content off of it and got some money from it. But
So were you still serving when you got married?
Yeah, I was. Yeah, 2012. Yeah.
So how did mess dues work then?
I didn't stay in long enough. We got married. We got married in February 2012, and I was out in May. So I got out in May. But then Pip stayed in. So we actually ended up in an officer's accommodation down in Strensall. It was interesting. It's a massive house. That's how the other side lived. I got from a crappy bedroom in a sergeant's mess that should have been condemned to a 4-bedroom house. It was brilliant. But no, my
the transition. Yeah. How did you find? When you said you enjoyed the resettlement packages and stuff like that, or did you not avail?
Didn't do it. No, I basically got told. So I was one of the lucky ones. And it's something that I don't do enough nowadays. One of my good mates, and I'll say this on the podcast, high bends don't get sweets. So my good mate Dan says that all the time. Back when I got out, I got told that there was going to be work out in Australia and working offshore, so oil and gas. Now Pip's family lived up here in Aberdeen, and they were oil and gas, and it was like they didn't have a direct contact, or there wasn't a direct link. But I got given an agency out in Australia. And I phoned up a guy called Ryan, and I said, look, Ryan, I'm in the military, but I'm due out like next month. And I've done I went up to Aberdeen on the weekend, and I took some leave, and I did my survival and my Bosier. I got all the basic core qualifications I needed to work offshore. And I said to Ryan, I said, look, I've been told there's work coming up. I'm just leaving the military. What's the crack? Can I get a job? And he was like, well, I don't know. And we had this sort of Skype call. He's in Australia, I'm in Scotland. And then I put it to him. I said, right, I'm out next week. I want a job, Ryan. And he said, well, I can't give you a job over Skype. And I said, okay, so does that mean if I fly over, I'll get a job? And he said, you fly over, we'll see what we can do. Now, I left the computer, and Pip walked past, and she was like, oh, so how did it go? Did you get a job? I said, yeah, they offered me a 12-week job offer out in Perth. Completely lied through my back teeth. But because I was under 30, I got a working backpacker's visa sort of thing. And I boosted out there. So, yeah, it was like 10 days after I got out of the military. I flew to Perth from Manchester, landed in Perth just before, I think it was, in fact, it was April because it was just before the Easter break. And then I went round to this agency and, I met Ryan and he was like, bloody hell, mate, I did not expect to see you here. Told me I'd have to wait till after the weekend. Pip was, I think, 12 weeks pregnant at that point. So I was very much not out there for a holiday. And I said to him, I'm not out here for a holiday, I need to get me work. And on the Monday they came through, flew me out to Fremantle. I learnt this new whole job and this career. And then I spent 3 months out in Australia working. And I won't ever forget my RCMO at the time told me that the grass wasn't greener. And I was making a big mistake because a lot of people thought I was a lifer. And to be honest, so did I. Until after Afghan. And a couple of things happened. I thought I was as well. But I made more than my sergeant salary in those 12 weeks. So I went back to Scotland just before my son was born with a sergeant's wage in my bank account essentially. And then
that's not going to
no, it's brilliant, mate. I've never seen anything like it. You've gone from sort of 2 and a bit K a month to $1,000 a day. It was bonkers. And then I spent a heap while I was there as well, But no, I got back and it was interesting because I got back and then I got contracted into the North Sea and I started working on it's called well intervention. So I started working on well intervention in the North Sea and it was all right. It wasn't what it all cracked up to be. I thought it was very much going to be like the military. And I think some people have found that, but I didn't find that. So there was a few guys that I actually worked with that I respected and I got on with, but it was really cliquey. And yeah, there was a couple of times where I felt like I was back at the start of my army career, where I've got some old bloke stood across from me on the moon pool, shouting and gobbing off, and you can't hear him. And I saw asking him to take his gum shield out because I was like, I can't hear you now. Why are you shouting at me? Just tell me what I'm doing wrong. Tell me what I'm doing wrong and I won't do it. And yeah, it was an interesting career. But no, the whole transition thing for me was really fast. And like I said, I went straight into a job. And it was a job that was exciting. I was out at sea in storms and climbing, big stacks and just doing stupid stuff, to be honest. It was before there's health and safety out there, but it was always like if they needed someone to do something stupid, I was that guy that was like, yeah, I'll go do it. Yeah, damn right.
So what's well intervention then?
Well intervention, so you've got like oil wells on the seabed and they've got caps on and stuff and trees on. So there's like subsea trees and as a vessel we'd go over and then we would deploy stuff down into the tree and we would essentially just service an oil well. But yeah, it was all right. There was parts of it that were pretty exciting. I think it's the Bass Straits. We went through there and the weather was absolutely horrendous. And we were still trying to work in it. And yeah, the moon pool in the centre of the boat's a moon pool. And you get all the swell coming through, and yeah, quite exciting.
I saw that.
But I did that, yeah.
I saw that.
Did that for a bit, and then I left the well intervention and went into rigging and lifting. So I went on to a couple of the BP rigs, Tartan Alpha, which is just across from where Piper Alpha would have been. Yeah. Worked on some of those, and actually Tartan Alpha was a real good. Tartan Alpha was a real good platform. And the guys on there were pretty sound. And that's when I started meeting like the veteran community offshore. So it was it was good to have a bit of banter again instead of just working with civvies that just didn't get it.
Yeah, I mean there's quite a lot of veterans do go into offshore.
Loads. And it's fine if you find your crew. You find a crew and you get on with it, then it's really good. And even now, there's like I live obviously up in Aberdeenshire, and as much as the oil in Aberdeen's kind of not doing so well anymore and employment's going down, there's still some really good lads up here. So yeah, different.
I mean, that's it, isn't it? I mean, Aberdeen kind of boomed on the old oil and gas industry.
Yeah, well, I went through 2 crashes. I went through a crash in 2015 and then one in 2018. And 2018, that was actually the time when I started planning my cutaway, because we went from decent money to a retainer and crap money and working 5 weeks on and sort of 10 days off, and it was effective.
No, you don't get paid for your days off.
No, not at all. And actually, it was at that point then when my good mate Dan, dry bends don't get sweets. So he left around the same time as me. I went oil and gas. He went IT. And he said to me, do I fancy a gig in the IT industry? And I was like, IT. And I was actually swapping out drill pipe the day that he was sort of talking to me. And I was like, hands covered in crap. I don't know nothing about computers. And he's like, no, but you don't need to. Team lead, or you learn through bloody troubleshooting, which obviously military folk, actually, when you put your head to it, majority of the guys and girls from the military are really good at troubleshooting and really good team leaders. So I binned it. I quit oil and gas and went down to Sellafield, down in Cumbria, and worked down there for a couple of years with my mate Dan, which was probably one of the best work-life jobs I've ever had since being out of the military. It was cracking.
And you enjoyed doing IT?
I didn't really do much of it because it was to be.
I'm only laughing because that's what I did.
Yeah, well, so I don't know what I'm allowed to say in terms of SC and all that sort of stuff, but so especially on Sellafield, I liked Sellafield because I worked with my mate, and we had a location that we would troubleshoot from, and we'd sort people's issues out. But what we did have was we had the backing of all the execs and all the senior guys there. Like, they loved us, and because there were civvies that would work there. And apart from one lad, Darren, if he watches this, he's a good guy. But a lot of the civvies that worked there would work to the minimum requirement, So whereas we would smash out work, and we were contracting, so we were getting overtime, and I didn't care. These guys weren't. Because of that, we got a really good reputation with the execs. And then COVID came in, and just before COVID came in, me, Dan, and Darren basically had a chat at it was called the Tech Bar of all things, and we were saying, COVID's going to come in, they're going to shut the country down, and the organisation we were working for were very much reactive, they weren't proactive, and as much as they got some good guys that worked for them, they didn't put a plan in place. They had no plan in place, and it was me and the two lads at that Tech Bar that basically turned around and said, you know what, let's job create. And I think this is a trend and something that military folk will do. They improvise, and we improvise. So we created a job. So we didn't ask for management approval. We didn't do anything. And when we got told by our manager, right, you got to go home, we went home with our laptops and our remote access. And the day before we did, we pinged out an email to every bugger and said there was a virtual service bar. And we logged on the next day, and you had 5,000 people that were having technical issues, and we created our own self-contained entity. And initially the managers, I think, were a bit like, what are you guys doing? We didn't approve this, and actually we're bringing the money in brilliant. We're working crazy hours, doing all the tickets we could, solving problems. But then the civvies that worked there got jealous. It got brought up in a conference call about our overtime, and they got jealous and they all complained. So the management said, right, no more overtime. Everybody needs to do something like 5 tickets. It was some crap like that. You had to do 5 tickets. And all the civvies did 5 tickets, and they ended up with penalties, and they ended up with loads of stuff. And it was a laughable matter because we'd created something that we were self-sufficient in and we were supporting, and they took it away. And when they took it away, they got penalised, but they wouldn't reinstate it because they couldn't. They'd gone against it. COVID. That was a great time.
Yeah, I mean, I got sent out, and working remotely, I hated it. Absolutely hated it. But you're right about people having a plan. All the people we looked after and other companies that we spoke to and stuff like that, we had nothing to do with. And not sudden everyone's gone home, and you're like, fucking hell. It was interesting from an IT perspective. It really was. Got a bit airy sometimes, especially like getting access to things where when you couldn't travel and stuff like that. There was ways around, but you'd do it. So how long did you do IT for then before you moved on to something else?
Well, I did 2 years. I think it's 2 years at Sellafield, and then we had COVID hit, and then it wasn't long after that. Well, it was kind of when things started clearing up. We went back to Sellafield, but it was terrible. Again, they very much went for a try and get everyone to work from home, apart from like the engineers that are needed on site. And a job came up working for Magnox. So again, Dan, he looked after me. He said, "Do I want a job?" And I was like, "Well, I don't know what is it." He said, "Becoming a what was the title? Technical Deployment Team Lead. And I was like, bloody hell, Dan, that's got technical in it. And he's like, yeah, but you're all right. You'll do all right. And it was the same thing, you know. I'm IT literate, but I can troubleshoot. So if something's not working, I'll troubleshoot. I'll go through a list. When I cut to the bottom of my list, Google. When I can't use Google, I'll speak to someone else. And I think that's another thing that they don't really teach you in the military. It's only when you get out that you start realizing that actually it's not a bad thing to ask for help, as long as you don't take the piss and just get people to do your work for you. So yeah, me and Dan did Magnox, and we did all the infrastructure update for all the Magnox sites around the UK, which again was another good little gig, to be honest. It was all right. The only bad thing was I was doing sort of 1,000 miles a week on top of work time. But that was when, especially with my regiment, things were starting going downhill, and like sort of men's mental health. I started picking up on, like, after COVID, something had changed, and we lost a couple of guys in the regiment to suicide. Now, I'd also been sort of coming home from working away, and me and my wife had ownership of a woodland, and every time I came home, it was the case of I'd go to the woodland and I would split logs, chop trees down, start building things. And it wasn't long after COVID we started something called Knocky Hill Woodland Centre. So it was our way of trying to get kids outdoors. I mean, we're an outdoor family, and kids through COVID got stuck indoors, so we started this new venture, and we built a base camp, and it had a toilet that was made out of pallets that when you sat on, you weren't sure whether the toilet was leant over or whether you were leant over. It's brilliant, because I'm not a joiner, but we did everything ourselves, and we worked with the education system. HIP brought on some fantastic programs for getting integration with schools, and actually before schools open their doors again, we ran sort of days for classes. So the classes would come with their teachers, and they would spend a whole day together as a class before they then get confined to sort of in-school environments. And that was such a great success that we started doing holiday clubs and adventure sort of activities for kids, and it was all aimed at kids, and I really loved it. I loved seeing kids being outdoors, being kids. But yeah, like I say, it was one of those. We lost a couple of guys, and it just made me think, especially, I mean, Pip noticed it more, was the fact that when I come home, I'd be quite, not necessarily stressed, but I wasn't myself as such. And then I'd go to the woodland and I would decompress. It was like little Cyprus tours without the beer. It was just manual work and fresh air. And yeah, we talked about setting something up for the military community, the military family. And in 2021, October 2021, we set up something called Warriors Woodland, which was a CIC, so community interest, not profit. And we set that up, and then with Pip's sort of guidance, I quit work. I give my IT job up. That, if I'm honest, I was earning way too much money, to have given up. But I give it up because I believed there was a bigger purpose, and I needed a purpose. And yeah, that's when the next part of this story would start.
I mean, going back to the working with the kids then towards the lockdown, that must have been really satisfying.
Yeah.
Because you're giving them purpose, you're giving them fresh air. I mean, there must have been. I bet they were running ragged all over the place.
100%, completely.
Which is what you want.
And we still do it now. So I mean, that actual Knocky Hill Woodland Centre has just grown. So we've increased and improved the infrastructure on the woodland. So we've got like an outdoor classroom now. We've got toilets. We've got an off-grid shower, and then we utilise bell tents and a couple of Mongolian yurts for accommodation. So we offer schools the chance to come out and do their residentials, and it's all organic, and it's all just about being part of a collective, and just being lunatics. It's so good. Especially for kids,
Probably 7 grandkids. I don't think you could handle them.
Oh, you'd be surprised, mate. You'd be surprised.
So moving into what you're actually doing now, this stage of what you've got to, is the interesting side. So how did that? I suppose it was a natural progression. You said you started doing something, things geared towards veterans and stuff like that. How did you get the word out for the start?
So I didn't do very well. I'm happy to share failures as well. I think it's really important. So when I first set up It was known as Warriors Woodland, and I'd set it up as a CIC, but it was set up as a CIC, but I'd done it wrong. So I'd done it with limited with guarantee or something instead of limited with shares, not guarantee. So I set it up wrong. So I had this whole massive concept that I was going to open the woodland up and we're going to get veterans there, and it was going to be like decompression, and it was going to be brilliant. But what happened was we set it up. I got told I'd set it up wrong. So I had to close it and then reopen it, which meant I lost sort of 6 months worth of time as an organisation. And then I'm just Stu Wright. I'm not anybody special. And when you work in the veteran support industry, it takes a long time to either get almost accredited or, it takes a long time to get recognised. And so I did it the wrong way round. So I went out with my heart and sort of started trying to create programs, but I couldn't get anyone on it. And it's because I failed with the networking. So it was about, it cost us a lot of time and a lot of money, if I'm honest. But it was about 15 months in maybe when things started happening, and I got invited down to the PRU in Edinburgh, which is a personal recovery unit, and it's where all the sort of men and women go when they're either on the pathway to medical discharge or they're on what's known as the rolling recovery program. And I got invited down there to essentially pitch, and I went down with my presentation that was all done by my heart, and thankfully there was a couple of guys there that could see what I wanted to do, and I'll be forever sort of grateful that they took the chance, because they did take the chance. They booked I call it a recalibration course. So they brought 12 guys up and they stayed out in the woodland for 4 nights, and that changed everything, because people that come on the course, they came on the course not knowing what to expect, and they left. The majority of them refocused. They left with new mates, because they all come from all over the UK, and they left with hope. So a lot of the guys and girls were really struggling with what to do next. And after they left, the word then pushed into like SAFA, and then I started getting telephone calls from SAFA and emails from SAFA. And then again, I was a bit slow on realizing it was all about networking. So I didn't jump at it. I just wanted to then run weekends. I wanted guys to come up for the weekend and just be out in nature. And again, it went really bloody slow. And I think it kind of got to our 2-year point when we got our first bit of funding. So we did it with no funding. We sold our house. So we sold our house and we put a fair bit of money into the woodland, and we used the money to offset the cost of me trying to run this organisation that was generating zero income. Because one of the things I couldn't do, and I still don't do, was charge veterans to come on the project. I charge organisations now, and I've started getting the links to do that. Anything that was sort of sole veteran or a veterans weekend, I wasn't charging, because the guys we lost, again, veterans are stubborn buggers. They don't talk, and then when there's issues, they don't want to sort the issues, and then they carry guilt. So, for me to charge someone to come on a course that could potentially get them out of the crap, they wouldn't do, because, not everybody's got the money to do it. And if you've got kids, then you carry that kind of, why am I spending that money to go to the woodland when I've got kids? I still do it. I still do it now when some of my decision making. But what happened was kind of fast forward 6 months after that, after the PRU and the recognition, I then started networking and outreaching. So I went to places and I started meeting people, and the word slowly started spreading of this new place called Operation Cairngorms. And you might be able to see the logo. So everything I did was kind of to catch people's eyes. So the logo, the red here, is the old reticle out of a SUSAT. It's one of those, once you notice it, that is there then. But we got funding from the Veterans Foundation, which was pretty much a lifesaver. We got 20k off them, which sounds like a lot of money. It's absolute nothing. It's peanuts, because as a CIC, we're not a charity, we're a CIC, so we pay tax on the sort of the money that we receive. There's odds and bits there, but actually Veterans Foundation really, really helped us, and by them giving us that money, just gave us that lifeline, for me to be able to go, right, I need to change something slightly. So I changed the programs, and then I started going out and meeting more people. And what happened was I actually met a lot more people that were my sort of peer group, my peer age. And then they came up to the woodland, they realised what I was doing, and they realised, you know what, it bloody works. And we've just keep growing from it. So I mean, now as of today, this last year we've had over 100 people in the woodland, and we've had everything from a women's only recovery retreat, so 3-day retreat for women veterans, female veterans. And we've worked with Veteran Housing Scotland, and they've got some cracking people on their staff as well, which is what I look for now. So, I mean, I'm part of the Scottish Veterans Wellbeing Alliance, which is a huge collective body of loads of organisations, and it's really good. I'm seeing so many organisations coming together to want to do more, but it's hard to link up with different people. So what I get to do now is, through my network and how I act and what I can deliver, I'm starting to attract the right people. So people are coming to me now and saying, "Oh, can you run this?" And I'm like, "Well, yeah, of course I can." And the veterans we support. So going back to, I mean, do you want me to pause there? Because I'm kind of belt feeding, aren't I? I get a bit excited when
No, fine, you crack on, mate. You crack on.
But it's just been, it was the last sort of 2 years now, 24 months, has been really refreshing, because we went from not doing a lot and just spending money trying to survive. I mean, so anyone that's out there, if you're part of a corporate world and you've got an ESG fund or stuff like that, or CSR, so we get zero funding still, and it's a pain. It's a pain. And that's the.
Well, I mean, how do you get to raise money then if you're not getting funding?
So we've got funding bids in, and we had one that didn't go through on Monday. So we now sit in this lull of doom, waiting to get told if we're going to get anything or not. But the way we kind of fundraise is every year I do an endurance event. So every year I run or I carry something, and they're always for a reason. So last year I think we needed the four season sleeping bags, because the guys that come on the course, I'm trying to make it really accessible. And some of the guys don't have sleeping bags, or they don't have waterproof jackets, and some of them have got them, but they don't want to use them because they're regatta, and it's like, well, it doesn't matter what brand it is. So last year I actually we attempted to run the full West Highland Way, and I did it with two guys that were still serving at the time, a lad called Cow, who's in the Ranger Regiment, and a lad called Jay Forbes, who's a cracking bloke. I mean, we didn't accomplish it, but we got real far into it, and we generated awareness, and it really showed the tenacity of what a few guys can do, especially when they're carrying baggage. And the money we raised from that helped to cover some of the overheads of running an organisation, because we still have all the bills and we still have all the overheads. But we also managed to buy all the sleeping bags, which then actually this year, when we had people come on the courses and people haven't got sleeping bags, or they're travelling by train, and the last thing they want to be doing is carrying a bouncing bomb on a train, they utilise one of ours. So every year I've done a couple of 24-hour endurance races, majority of which I'll do the first 12 hours just normal, and then the second 12 I'll put a plate carrier on, just so that way the civvies that are running it always ask at the end, why are you wearing a weighted vest? And it's like, it's to signify the weight other people carry that you can't see. And then the second question is, well, why wouldn't it be easier wearing it at the start and taking it off? And it's like, yeah, that's exactly why I do it, to symbolise that grit that people carry daily that no one sees. And then this year, so on the 18th of November, I'm actually flying out to Atlanta. So I signed up for something known as, it's called the Ruck Race League. So as part of our funding, how we generate income, I tactically set up something called Project Momentum. So it's an outdoor fitness group under the Operation Cairngorms banner. So, and I've got a really good mate of mine, Carl Stedman, who's the coach for it. So he used to sort of coach CrossFit UK in Ireland, and he's just a top bloke, family man, and his heart's in the right place. So he does the coaching for all the fitness classes. But what it does is it generates memberships, and then those memberships go into Operation Cairngorms. So they're the ones now that are actually supporting some of our veteran programs. But at the start of the year, we got word that there was going to be this new sort of event called the Ruck Race League. So you've probably heard of CrossFit and stuff. Well, Ruck Race League is essentially tabbing or yomping. So you put a pack on, and there was challenges set out throughout the year. So we had everything from how far you could go.
I'm pulling a funny face because it's so alien.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, well, this is it. And a lot of it's funny. A lot of the guys that I've told that are veterans, it's probably like a 60-40. 60% pull the same face and go, "What are you doing?" And 40% get a little bit excited, But the challenge, so actually this year, that those series of challenges really helped me personally because we didn't get the funding. We're trying to run stuff as a family of young kids. It was pretty stressful. Quite a lot of the stuff that was going on. So these challenges, and it's run by a guy, Bill Anfez, who's I think he's Green Beret or something, US. Every month there was a different challenge. So how far could you run in an hour with 20% body weight? How far could you, or how much weight could you carry for a whole mile? Now we were doing it as part of our community. We've got a really strong community now of civvies essentially that train with us. Yeah, one of the guys, Dennis is something like, what is he, 56, 57? Top bloke.
A good age, I might
strong
add.
age, mate. He carried 100 kilos for a whole mile, and it's an effort. But what it did was it brought together like a civilian population. So we created this community. But in doing all these, anyway, getting back to the Ruck Race League, so my head was massively into like, if I'm one of these sort of guys, if I get stressed or if I'm not happy about something, I either need to run it or get in cold water. It's the only way I can sort of level myself out. So I really put my head into these challenges. And at one point, I was sixth in the world. And so me and Carl somehow managed to get in the top 30. So we've been invited to the finals. So we did it as a bit of a crowdfunder. So we've done a crowdfunder to try and support the project because again, I don't get funding for what I do. So the money I earn where I work goes to Operation Cairngorms. So without the crowdfunder, I wouldn't have been able to afford going. But what we're also utilising it for is we've linked up with some US sort of military guys that are also on it. And there's an Australian army, I think he's a major. So we've linked up with them. And it's all about trying to grow that network and see what we can do with it. It's 18th of November. We've got a crowdfunder still live. And we're going to fly out to Atlanta and compete in this first ever Ruck Race League final. And who knows what's going to happen. They're saying like Ruck Race, it could become something really big. And just taking Operation Cairngorms as our flagship out there and promoting it out there, I hope it's going to generate more awareness. And we're going to be doing some serious amounts of sort of content. And hopefully someone will see and actually understand why we're doing it. I'm not just doing it to go compete and run. I'm doing it to take this SUSAT reticle out there and see who can recognise it and then build that network and hopefully generate awareness and funding from it.
What you touched on earlier was about, especially in like places like Scotland, massive area with lots and lots of veterans. And there's lots of small organisations that don't talk to each other.
Yeah.
Also, you've got the bigger organisations, and I've spoke to many CICs and places like that, and each one of them have said the same thing. The big organisations, and through no fault of their own, I don't think, don't really look after the smaller ones. They've been approached and asked, and basically no.
Yeah, that's 100%.
I think that's put a lot of people's noses out of joint with the big ones. The big four, as they call them. It is, and it's like I had someone on the podcast once, and they turned around and said, "Never pay into a charity where the CEO is getting paid more than you are."
Yeah,
and I was like, "That's a fair point," and whether it's right or wrong, because everyone's got to live.
The only thing, so there's two things I've learned in that sort of perspective is I completely agree. Like the charities where the CEOs are 6 figures, when you start looking at that organisation and all the staff and where the money goes to. Now they still do a job. They still have a purpose.
Yeah, they're still doing amazing.
And I think the argument for that sort of CEO one, I'm never going to be that guy, geez. But the argument for that is like, say, Help for Heroes, that the guys there's a lot of scrutiny and a lot of stuff that went wrong in that charity. But you could almost say that the guy, if he gets 100 grand, he's probably bringing in a couple of million through his connections. I think that's the flip side of that argument. And don't get me wrong, like I am one of the bottom feeders. So, and I'm going to be really careful with what I say with the charity scene because the organisations in the charity scene, there's some really good ones, but there's a lot of ones that cost a lot of money, and it's really hard to see how it goes. But within those organisations are really good people trying to do really good things. So I've spoken to some really, and my networking, this is where the networking comes in. I don't necessarily want to speak to that organisation, but I want to speak to that lad or that lass because they're in it for the right reasons. And I'm fortunate I have managed to start connecting with those people now. And again, that's where, I'm hoping we get some funding applications successful this year, and we've got some really good collaborations in the making. There's a place on near, it's a place called Tarbert, and there's a guy called Steve Loss, and him and his wife Gail, and they run something called The Journey. So they do retreats, they do cold water therapy, and they've got this site down there now that's going to be absolutely amazing. And we're trying to create this collaboration so people can come up to Aberdeenshire and essentially live the wild side of either recovery or reconnection, and then they can go to Steve's for the luxury side of it. It's such a clever blend. But again, it all depends on if the funding applications come through, then we will be supporting. It's on 130 people in 2026. And when you hear those numbers and realise, like Operation Cairngorms, for instance, you're looking at it, and I mean, I'm really, really lucky that Pip, my wife, she steps in and she leads as well, and she'll give me a kick up the arse when I need it because I can't always stay focused. And the pair of us have come so far, but it literally is just me and Pip. There's no one else in the behind the scenes. There's no business development manager. There's no, the instructors we get in quite commonly are veterans as well. So we've got some good lads that come in to help us with the actual delivery. So it's all really low key. And yeah, when you think 134 people could be impacted by an organisation as small as ours, and we're not after a lot of money, it's not about hundreds of thousands, it's about 30k.
Which in the scheme of it is not a lot.
No, not at all.
And it won't go far.
No, it doesn't go far. And that's what people don't realise. It doesn't go far. And when we've got really good business plans made, and we've got really good ideas, and how we structure everything. But 30k is nothing. I mean, you as a family of four, anyone that's watching this, I don't get 30k now. I get nothing. This is bonkers. But we don't do it. I don't do it for the money. But what I do realise is that you need the money. Money isn't a dirty word. And I think a lot of people also see CICs as a bit of an odd one because we're not a charity. So we're not, and people think because we're not a charity, then we're not. I don't know how to put it. Yeah, well that's it. Yeah, but equally, I know people that are in charities. I've got a really good friend who runs an amazing charity, but she's been limited with what she can do because her board have said no. And I understand you need. So I have two directors that are not related to me at all. One's military, one's not military, and that's a really good blend because I get both sides of the coin. I get, one of them saying, yeah, we should be doing that because actually that'll really help people. And I've got the old one saying, well, actually, it doesn't make sense in my eyes. So they steer us the way you should have. But what we don't have is we don't have the massive overheads and people who could prevent us from changing something slightly that could have a massive impact.
I mean, you're right about one thing you said there about what people think of CICs. There's been that many bad charities, in inverted commas, the collectors in the street and stuff like that. That even people like me, I didn't even know what CIC stood for until a couple of weeks ago, to be honest. I didn't know what it was. So I'd see it on someone's thing, and I'm just thinking, well, you haven't got a registered charity number, so you must be fucking dodgy.
Yeah.
And it's not until I've got to understand and speak to more people, like Operation Jackdaw, which does a similar type of thing to you, but down in Kent.
Right.
I think I'll try and get you in touch with them because, I've got a mate up in Northumberland, Dan, who runs an outdoor place. He's just canoed across the Yukon.
Oh wow!
On his own.
Okay.
Yeah, fucking head case. In my view, he's a cool guy, and he does a lot. He's got a business doing it, but he also brings in a lot of stuff for the veterans and things, in courses on like that. But his is primarily a business.
Yeah.
And
that's literally what you need to do, though, and that's one of my lessons learned. But I mean, I think with the CICs and the unknown, the reason why I set up a CIC was because of we lost a couple of guys, and actually I needed to do something, and if I wanted to set a charity up, it was going to take ages, and I'd have to find the right people, I'd have to put people in place, I'd have to do tons of paperwork, which to set the CIC up, I didn't. Now, the really annoying thing though is that a lot of people set CICs up to complement their hobbies, you know. So not necessarily veteran support worlds, but I know people that have set CICs up for like, you know, doing stuff that essentially is their hobby, and they then draw out of the pot, and there's only so much money in the pot, and you're like, well, you know, people can pay for that, but won't pay for this because it makes them carry guilt then, or it makes them think, oh, there's something wrong with me, you know, and then they get guilty again, and why is there something wrong with me, you know?
So if I come up, say, for a retreat or a rebalance or, you know, whatever you, like how you word it, what sort of things do you do?
Yeah, so
You've got 5 veterans coming
yep.
up you tomorrow. What would they expect to do?
So I give them a spade each, and they have to dig a hole, and then we put a poncho over it about 6 inches. I'm only joking. We don't dig in. We do not rough it. So I'm just putting that out there.
I'd be going, quite look forward to that.
No. So when I first started, that's genuinely what people thought we did. They saw it as a woodland project, and they thought it was like roughing it and digging it in. No, so what we do is we bring everybody together. We utilize Mongolian yurts. So there's 4 bed spaces in each yurt with a fire in the center. And then we spend time in the woodland. Now it's all about recalibrating and refocusing. So whenever there's a task on, we will try and do it as a team. So for instance, the last group that came in, we split all the firewood. So I bring all the logs down, then we split all the firewood, and then we split the firewood into kindling. And then we have lessons on bushcraft and wilderness skills. So that's what I teach now. So we'll talk and we'll go through what's in the woodland, what can we use to get the fire going, as opposed to just getting a lighter out and a fire lighter. You know, we take things back to basics. We then do woodland walks. So again, it's about movement. Movement increases the chance of people talking, takes away the stress of the environment. Our center point is a 64-foot parachute with a fire pit in the center. So again, it's a circle. So it means we're all equal. And the idea there is very, very much like sort of tribal. So it's not a square room, it's not therapy, it's not clinical. So the woodland walks, we've had a lot of storm damage within the woodlands. So Storm Arwen hit us 10 days, I think, after we started. We lost like 150 trees. It's been bonkers. But what it has done is it's given a lot of areas in the woodland that are relatable. So there are trees that have been absolutely smashed, but you know what, they're still growing. So I'll take people for the walk and we'll talk about the environment and how the environment's adapting, and which then can resonate to some people quite a lot. Other things we'll do, so for cooking, I wasn't in the catering corps. My good mate Andy, he was, and he does come up sometimes to help out on the courses, and he is an absolute amazing chef using a campfire. But when he's not up, or even when he is, again, we will get all the guys and girls in and we'll talk through what we're going to make, and then we'll go to work. So people will be processing the veg, processing the meat, and then we eat really hearty food as well. Like nutrition's a big one. So we've got the fresh air, we've got the walking, which essentially is the fitness. We've got the nutrition from the food. So sometimes I'll get a deer in. So I did once get a whole fallow deer in. So it was like, I think 48 kilos worth of deer, and we strung it up. Yeah, and I showed everybody how to sort of to dress it, to skin it, and then Andy gave a lesson on butchery. So whereas I was going to give a lesson on how to break it down, he actually gave a proper butchery lesson. So everybody got to see where all the different parts are you could eat. And then we utilised the campfire, and we dug an underground oven, and we made a big feast essentially. So during that time, you know, everybody helps with the food and the catering and whatnot, and then everybody washes up. You know, it's down to the team to clean the pots and pans. And there isn't anyone that's going to do it for you. So go get on with it. And again, there'll be a couple of guys or girls that will go to the washing point and they'll clean the pot and pans, but they talk while they're doing it. And then we come back to the fire and we might have another discussion, or we'll go up to the axe throwing range and we'll throw some axes, or we've got a crossbow range. So I use crossbows because, so my aim was to try and make this very much about the reconnection, but also about a bit of like the fun stuff. And projectiles. Yeah. Projectiles are fun. And I wanted it to appeal to not necessarily younger veterans, but I mean, my peer group, you know, so people now who are, say, mid-30s through to mid-50s, that sort of area, Afghan and Iraq veterans. I want to bring them together. So I want to bring every veteran together, but that was my kind of target audience. So you get the guys on like the crossbow range or on the axe throwing range, and, you know, I've had it before where I've had a free power lad to my left and a Falklands veteran, Royal Marine on my right, from can throw a bloody axe, and you listen to them going at each other, and then you get a medic who'll tip up and throw it in, and you're like, well, hang on a minute, boy. He's doing it. What's going on here? And so you get the banter, and then you get the camaraderie, and then again, it's I like teaching sort of lessons on wilderness skills, primitive skills. So whether it's fire, whether it's cordage, and whether it's how to use tools correctly, even splitting wood. Like the amount of times I get told, you army boys know how to split wood, or you know how to use a knife and an axe. If I ever had to use that, then I'd be in a real bad situation. So no,
Yeah, I was
actually we
going to
don't.
say, I was in the artillery. If I had to
Yeah,
bloody make firewood, there's something gone wrong.
exactly. Yeah, but see, even just doing a little job, like even like a little skill, like processing firewood, it's something that's a new skill. It requires physical effort, and you get an output from it. So again, it's a purpose, and yeah, it works. And then during the evening, we do campfire discussions and talks, and so we try and keep it so whatever gets said to the fire will stay and burn out in the coals, unless it's like a safeguarding issue or something like that. But what it does is it creates the safe space that a lot of guys and girls, especially guys, need, where they will tell their story, or they will open up a little bit about something, and someone in that circle might be able to assist them, and will offer that peer-to-peer support that they need. And I've had it on the last one. We had a chap who told his story, and it was proper, yeah, it was one of those stories. But giving that guy that opportunity was what it was all about. And then I've had other people that were talking about during the day about PTSD and getting support and not knowing how to get it. And then someone in that group was, well, hang on, I've just gone through these guys. So that there, it's not just about coming along and knowing how to make a fire, or I want to go to Cairngorms because they throw axes. Yeah, sure. But what you might also get is the opportunity to open up a little bit, or learn something, or support someone else, which is the other key factor. It's not always about the individual, it's about what they can support someone else with.
No, I totally agree. And it's something I've learned over the last 18 months
Yeah.
with doing this. The amount of people who, I wouldn't say it's helped.
But
Well, actually, yeah, well, it has helped people.
Well, so what you're doing here, though, and this is where I think the message here that's really unique with podcasts is me sitting here and doing this podcast with you. Like I said, this is my first one I've done, and up until about an hour and 20 minutes, it was probably absolute waffle, because that's the story, whereas this is the meaningful part. And what I hope is that me doing this, both we're engaged, so you learn a little bit, I listen and learn a little bit, but there might be someone else that watches this and goes, hang on, where's Cairngorms? Or someone will go, oh, hang on a minute, where's Cairngorms? Because my mate could do with that, And I think that's where the purpose lies, and it is all about trying to create purpose. And yeah, I'll go back to when I lost my mate Matty out in Afghan. So a couple of years ago, we had a group in, and one of the guys that was actually around the campfire, a young Lily, a cracking lad, and he's doing brilliant now. His brother was best mates with a guy called Stephen Monkman, who died in the same contact as my mate Matty. So complete different paths. Like Lily's, I think 27, I'm 43, but his brother was in my peer group, and you know what? So we created a bit of a connection there, and he's been back a few times now. He comes back and helps out. He's got mates that have come onto it, and that network has grown, and it's been brilliant. I've had some really, really awesome people come on the courses, and I've had people that, sometimes I'm a bit like, did they get anything out of it? But it's down to them, But one thing, we don't rough it, but it is about getting back to basics, and I think it's really important,
It sounds absolutely amazing. I mean, what feedback do you get from people that have been on it?
Sleep is my biggest feedback. And I used to be like, what does that mean? And I had a big lad on it who is EOD, and we made a feast and we talked, and then he didn't take his meds and he went and slept. So I always sleep out by the fire. And what tends to happen is a lot of people will start in like a bell tent or a yurt, but they actually want to get back out to basics. They just don't want to admit it. So by like the second night, everybody's roughing it essentially. It's cracking. You got tarps up and all this sort of stuff, and the big lad, I got up at sort of 5 a.m. to start the fire, and he come up to me and give me a massive hug, like proper huge hug, and I was like, whoa, come on, big lad, it's not that sort of camping trip. And he's like, no, Stu, honestly, thank you. He said, That's the first time I've slept without my meds in 10 years. And the feedback I get is all about connection and relaxation. People actually get to, and I think it's because they step away. They step away and they're vulnerable. And even those hardy guys that are not vulnerable, there's something going on. And I've had someone tell me that it cleared the fog. So they were getting medically discharged and they were unsure about a lot of stuff, and sitting around that fire speaking to everybody else made them realize that, you know what, it wasn't their fault. It's not their fault. It's the car that they're dealing with at the moment. And by engaging in conversation, learning some new skills that are not military based, actually let them breathe. And by doing that, they went home and they put pathways in place, and they're now smashing life, like literally smashing life. It's so. I mean, I get inspired by people coming on, and when I see them on day one, and then I see them later down the line. I mean, I had another veteran who, she was, I won't say too much, but she'd had a lot of trauma, not from the military, and she came on one of our courses, and I think halfway through day two, she cracked a joke. And everyone was like, "Ooh, wow," And she apologised, and she was like, "Oh, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have said that." It's like, no, this place is about being unfiltered. You're safe. So she cracked another one, and then 2 weeks later, she's down at number 10, meeting the veterans minister. And she would never have done that before. It's really, and other feedback, unfiltered. I get that quite a lot of the time. Like, don't get me wrong, I'm not really a swearer. But some guys, they go through their workplace and put up with civvies, or they put up with people, and actually they come out and they have a cup of coffee, and the first thing that comes out of the mind is an F-bomb, and it's just like,
I must admit, my language is completely, I can't help it. It is. Quite lucky where I work that I get away with it.
If you went to a men's shed and started dropping them, they'd be frowning on you, whereas you can come to Operation Cairngorms and chuck some axes, and I mean the only thing we are a dry organisation.
That was what I was going to ask you, because I've spoken to other organisations who are now dry.
Yeah.
Didn't start off that way, but it didn't work.
No.
It just didn't work. One, I mean, safety really, but it was we're idiots when we're drunk.
Yeah.
And you don't need that in that environment.
Well, for me, it was the curse of the associations, to be honest. So I think a lot of associations get it wrong. It's run by good guys, but a generation before me, and the way that generation probably dealt with a lot of stuff was by going to the pub, having a few beers. Now, what they could do there was, and this is where society's changed, we've lost that whole pub generation, which actually, as much as it was alcohol, it gave people a chance to communicate. And the associations, even now, I mean, my association, like I said, there's some good guys that run it, and they do a good job at different things, but I'm not going to go down to York for a 24-hour piss up, and it gets preached like it's a good thing. And it's like, there's nothing worse you can do to someone who's suffering or depressed or got PTSD than put them around people, fill them full of alcohol, so they get massively happy, and then bin them the next day. It doesn't work. So with our sort of establishment and what we are aiming to achieve, I treat it so it's not a smoker. I do every now and then I'll chuck on what's known as a social gathering. So it's a gathering for veterans, but it's a social one, and I put on social. And that means, if you want a couple of beers, you bring a couple of beers. But what this isn't is it's not piss up in my woodland, because I'm not about that, and I don't drink when I don't drink really anyway, because I just can't be arsed. I haven't got time. I don't see much in the benefit from it. So no, we don't do it. If people, however, though, so what I will say is, if people have an alcohol requirement, so alcoholics, things like that, they can't just go dry. I respect that, and I welcome them still, under the context that there's that honesty, that integrity and transparency. And if people want to come on, but they need to consume to keep themselves there, then we just manage it. And that's part of them managing their time with me and me managing it, so we all know where we sit. But it's we keep it dry.
And that's a good way of doing it, because you don't come over preachy.
No.
As well.
No.
And that's the last thing people like that know, but the last thing anybody needs, really.
Yeah.
I won't say people, because that almost sounds like I'm belittling them, and I'm really not.
No.
But no, you don't need people preaching you, as I've discovered. I try to give people advice sometimes, and I can be a bit overbearing.
Yeah.
sometimes.
Probably like me in cold water, to be honest. I'm forever trying to get people in cold water.
Well, you're not going to get me in fucking cold water, mate. I'll tell you that now.
If you come up, you'd be surprised. And see, I mean, I'm not going to preach it, but there is some serious health benefits, psychological as well, with cold water. Like people that.
So I've heard, and you see it more and more and more.
Yeah, I mean,
people
it's
talk
become
about.
more of a fashion statement, I think, from COVID. And
Yeah.
if I could go back 2 years, I'd have designed a dry robe, or like the Frudark. I know they're not dry robes; they're Bedouin combat robes, aren't they? You know,
Yeah.
but I would have designed a dry robe. But actually, 2 years ago is when I started cold water, and it was because I was stressed. Like I trying to get up Cairngorms with no funding, and I was on minimal sleep, and I couldn't turn my head off. And it was Pip, my wife, who does cold water as well. She said, "You need to get in that tub." And I was like, "I'm not getting that tub. It's cold water. Why would I want to get my ass in that?" But actually, it worked. And the first 3 times they are crap. And I don't care what anyone says. The first 3 times are crap. But after the third one, you know, you put your big boy pants on, your big girl pants on, you understand it's just cold water. So it's going to be cold. But what you get is you get a psychological benefit from it. And so I can go in cold water now, and if my head is busy, it helps with your circulation, changes things, and I can refocus, and I can watch my heart rate change within 2 minutes of being in cold water. And then when you get out, you get your dopamine and your endorphins, and you get like the happy drug, and it lasts for ages. So yeah, the cold water, like I say, I won't preach it too much, but honestly, when I get you up here, I'll take you to river. Yeah, it's not baptism, nothing like that, but it's
I was going to say, take me to the river.
Yeah, well, so the last group I had up here, and this is a really powerful one. So the last group I had up here, I had a young lad on the course who was struggling with many different things. But one of the things he said he struggled with was his control and his ability to overcome things. And the instructor who was also on as part of their organisation, cold water dips like me, we said, right, well, I'll tell you what, we're going to take you down to the river tomorrow. Why am I going down the river? We're going to get you in it. And we're going to get you to overcome something and push through it. So we got this young lad, and there's a bridge, and we got him to stand up on the handrail and step off. And you know, it was safe. We had things put in place, and I was in the water ready for him. But he took about 3 minutes of standing up there, and you could see him visibly trying to get past that wall and trying to step off. And then he stepped off, and he dropped down. He hit that water. He came up, and he didn't come up screaming. He come up with like exhilaration. You know, he was buzzing. He swam across, and I put my hand down into him to grab him out of the water. Big slap on the back, and he was buzzing. And it wasn't because he jumped in cold water. It's because he'd overcome something. There was a barrier. There was an obstacle, and he chose to do it. And that's I love that sort of stuff. You know, and it wasn't me. It wasn't the other lad that was there. It was just him. He did it, and he took that away. And I hope people can do that, and then when they do have to make a hard decision, they might have that little bit of reflection where they go and jump off that bridge. I step off that bridge, and he stepped as well. It's not like jumping. He didn't jump free. It was like just a step, give himself up.
He stepped through. I like to call it stepping through the door.
Yeah.
You know, that door's there, and it's shut or it's barred, or you've locked it yourself. You've got to open it and walk through it, and once you've gone through it, you've got to shut it behind you as well.
Completely.
Don't leave it open.
No, completely.
Yeah. Right, we've been on for nearly 2 hours.
It's been good, mate. Really good.
That's gone further, a lot longer than I thought it would. I don't want to take up too much more of your time, but quickly, where can people get in touch with you?
So we've got Instagram.
If they want to get in touch about organising anything.
So we've got a website, www.opcairngorms.org. And it is Operation Military and Cairngorms, which is a mountain range, .org, so Op Cairngorms, or Instagram wise. So I put a lot on Instagram because it seems to be the easiest way to get people. And that tag is Stu Wright _adventures, and that'll link you to Project Momentum and Op Cairngorms. Yeah.
You get some social stuff on TikTok as well.
Yeah. I don't know. I feel a bit old.
No, hey, don't knock TikTok. Honestly, there's a massive veterans community on TikTok.
Oh, right, okay.
There really is. Right. It's huge.
Okay.
Honestly, I was quite surprised when I first ventured into the TikTok realm. I was getting presented videos of ladies dancing, let's say, which I was quite happy with. And then all of a sudden it changed. And all I get was vets. A lot of them moaning about shit. But a lot of people offering services.
All right.
on TikTok.
Okay.
There's a lot of
Oh,
it. I wouldn't miss it.
right.
I'd really, really look into it. Right, I'm going to stop
Yeah.
the recording there.
Superb,
Again,
mate.
thanks for coming on.
Yeah, appreciate it.
And if anybody wants to get in touch with you, I'll have all the links in the show notes as well.
Brilliant.
Wish you all the best in the future with your with Up Cairngorms. It does sound amazing, I must admit. I may one day take you up on it. It's a bit of a drive from here.
Well, we had someone come up from Preston a few weeks ago, so.
No, I say it's not. It's a bit of a drive, but it's not that far. And it's been a long, long time since I've been to Aberdeen. I used to go up there, stay there when we were doing tug of war at the Premier Games.
Oh, right, okay.
Anyway, again, thanks for
No,
coming
you're
on.
welcome. Thank you.
I've really enjoyed it. I hope you enjoyed that podcast. I enjoyed recording it. If you could just hit the like button, and also if you could subscribe and hit the notification bell, that'd be great, because it'll help the channel grow. The more people will see it, the bigger it'll get, and the more guests I can get on, and the more people I can talk to. Well, I hope you enjoyed it, like I said. Look forward to the next one. Hopefully we'll be out next week as normal. Bye-bye now.